I'm Duskin, and I'm trying something new today. A vlog-style summary of my thoughts on a game instead of a more structured piece like I've done in the past. And I'm going to start that off with the game that I decided to play on a whim that honestly fits a more unstructured thing like this, OlliOlli. OlliOlli was first released in 2014 for the PS Vita, with the version I played being the 2019 release, a part of the Switch Stance collection on the Switch, that also came bundled with OlliOlli 2. It was an indie title made by Roll7, in fact, their first original game, with a little bit of an asterisk here because there was another game. So, OlliOlli was the devs' first proper original game, with their primary work being primarily educational games and games made in conjunction with things like universities and governments and stuff like that. The only original game outside of it was a small mobile puzzle game that had about 30 levels to it total and was really small and more a proof to them that they could make a game from beginning to end without needing a publisher or without needing a big entity backing them. It was there dipping their toe into the indie market, and OlliOlli was the first actual game that came out of it. But what is OlliOlli? OlliOlli is given the title of an arcade skateboarder, most closely embodying the side-scrolling platformer, dodging obstacles instead of any enemies and trying to rack up a high score by stringing together tricks on your way to getting to the end of the level. The goal of OlliOlli, like I just mentioned, is twofold. One, getting to the end of the level, and two, racking up that high score with as many tricks as possible and chaining together different combos to do so. It's achieved through a deceptively simple type of gameplay. You use one button and one stick to play OlliOlli. A good way to think of it is that the button controls your legs, allowing you to kick off the ground for a speed boost and brace for a landing on solid ground, while the stick is your board, spinning it to do different tricks, and using it to land on rails to grind and other parts of the environment. Being off on your timing can cost you points, it can cause you to stumble, and sometimes that's just annoying, but in later levels, it becomes a death sentence because precision is absolutely required. And if you do not have that precision, if you're off by that little second, if you stumble that little bit extra, you're going to go straight into an obstacle, you're going to crash, and you're going to need to redo the entire level. As an experience, the developers wanted OlliOlli to achieve flow state gaming, something that has existed for a long time and continues to exist now, but at the time was a concept that was sort of in its infancy. This is the days of early mobile gaming. You're thinking your Subway Surfers, your Temple Runs, your Jetpack Joyrides. They were trying to get it so that the controller would feel like an extension of you, saying that they wanted an emphasis on kinetic movement so that it's just a constant state of keeping yourself going. And we'll get into whether or not I think they succeeded, but I think they did a pretty good job. And because of it, it does feel right at home with those mobile games. This feels very akin to your Subway Surfers type games because of that flow state, that kinetic movement that they talked about. The game itself went on to a pretty good reception, receiving a 79 on Metacritic, with scores mostly being at the 8-point mark. A few critics were more negative than others, but a lot of them were right on that mark. And it even won a BAFTA award in 2015 for being the best sports game. Didn't know that BAFTAs were given out for best sports games, but here we are. OlliOlli got one. In terms of my knowledge going into the game, I didn't know anything about it. I knew it was about skateboards. I knew it was by the same guys who did Rollerdrome, because I saw a little bit of that when it came out, but I didn't know anything about OlliOlli. I picked it because I'd been playing two very long games, and I needed something that was short and sweet and just not massive and sprawling. I know it's the same thing, but I was playing Fallout 4, still am, and Pocopia at the time, and those games can be so overwhelming, and I wanted something that was just, that I could just snack on, and OlliOlli was perfect for that. So I'm glad I picked it. Now for the more interesting bits. The art style felt really simple, but kind of rough, in a way that fits a skateboarding experience quite well, in my opinion. Being someone who has never touched a skateboard in my life. Actually, that's not true. Touched a skateboard once in my life, when I fell off it while I was trying to get on one. I have much experience. Look to me for the skateboarding opinions. Sometimes the art style can cause a little confusion on certain levels, blending the grinding objects a little too much with the background, which is entirely uninteractable and can cause you to confuse it for the other and put in an input wrong because you just read the level wrong. But in my opinion, it happens very rarely. This was one of the bigger criticisms of OlliOlli when it first came out, and I think it's overblown. I don't think it's too bad in that regard. The gameplay, as I mentioned earlier, is simplistic, again, matching the art style. The whole game has that simplistic style going for it, and it works really well because they just keep going for it. They don't overextend themselves in any specific area. It also nails the flow state they were aiming for. Tricks are easy to pull off, though occasionally tricky to remember the specific inputs because they have all different kinds of spins that you need to do specific tricks. So if you're trying for a specific trick, you might not get it, and if you don't put in a proper input, it'll like default you to one or two tricks, which are like when you're trying to chain a bunch of different ones together. That can be a little bit annoying, but not really the game's fault. It's more the memorization aspect. It's like complaints people have for fighting games. The game's broken up into a level system with 5 or 6 different zones, areas, whatever, each of which have 5 different levels within it, and then 5 challenge levels based on those levels afterwards. And that made it incredibly accessible and addictive in terms of playing the levels. You could pick any level after you've played up to it and unlock it. Like you need to do level 1 to get level 2, etc., etc. So you could play them and replay them whenever you wanted, and they're all very short, which meant that it was incredibly easy to just jump back in for one more go, trying to nail it. And if you were getting exhausted from doing a certain one over and over again, but you still wanted to play some OlliOlli, you can jump back to a previous level and try and smash that high score out. And I think that made it a much more enjoyable experience than it would have been if it was done differently. The flow state is very easy to break with hitting the ground, even with perfect timing, breaking your input string, and therefore distancing yourself from the controller. Like, they wanted the kinetic movement, they wanted the extension of you to the controller, but when you're on the ground, there's times where you're just not inputting anything and you're just sitting back for a second. It doesn't tend to be for too long, but it does break that immersion. Like, again, comparing to Subway Surfers, it's like when you just have a clear line for a bit. I don't think it's massively prevalent, and I don't think it's too much of an issue, and I think it is something they can address. And I think from what I've read, it is something they address in the second game, but I'm not entirely sure because I haven't played the second game. Dun dun dun. The other major complaint I had about this game could just be a personal issue. Like, it could just be that I wasn't gelling in the same way that other people gelled. But the difficulty in finishing certain levels felt really high for a game like this. Like, some of the ones later in the game, which, like, it is intended to be more difficult, is towards the end. It's you using the skills you've gotten. But it felt like I was hitting a massive brick wall in terms of momentum because I just couldn't get through it. It felt like you needed to get very specific landings to continue on, and I just wasn't able to put those inputs in at that specific time. So I don't necessarily think that's a knock against the game, but it's something to note if you are struggling with this game and getting used to it in the early sections. The later sections can become a big slog, so just need to watch out for that is all. All in all, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect from OlliOlli going in, but what I got was a lovely reminder of what mobile gaming meant at this point in its life. Smaller titles looking to design shorter play experiences and building this idea of flow state before they became about cramming themselves with as much microtransactions and ads and FOMO as possible. It's a simple and fun game that played within its means brilliantly, without overstepping and crashing, but also not under-delivering in any aspect. The elements on their own are rather simplistic, but they go together so well, they work so well hand in hand in delivering a cohesive tone, a cohesive experience, that it makes the game feel more than the sum of its parts. And I think that's awesome. Its focus on simple gameplay was strong, and while there is definitely visible room for improvement from Game 1, OlliOlli stands firm as a solid game to kill some time with and a very enjoyable experience. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. Apologies for it being a bit scuffed. I've been trying to get back into the swing of things for a while now. It's been a bit of a rough time. And I appreciate you watching. Hopefully the next one will be a bit better, and we'll just keep going from there. The next one I'm planning on looking into currently is Into the Breach, so see you for that one next time.